people, tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. That which is devoted is among you, O Israel. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove it. In the morning present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe that the Lord takes shall come forward, clan by clan. The clan that the Lord takes shall come forward, family by family, and the family that the Lord takes shall come forward, man by man. He who is caught with the devoted thing shall be destroyed by fire, along with all that belongs to him. He has violated the covenant of the Lord and has done a disgraceful thing in Israel. Early the next morning, Joshua had Israel come forward, tribe by tribe, and Judah was taken. The clans of Judah came forward, and he took the Zerahites. He had the clan of the Zerahites come forward by families, and Zimri was taken. Joshua had his family come forward man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. Then Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and give him the praise. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me. Achan replied, it's true, I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. When I saw in the plunder a beautiful robe from Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them, and I took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent with the silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in the tent with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua, together with all of Israel, took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold wedge, the sons and daughters, the cattle, donkeys, sheep, his tent, all that he had, to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today. Then all of Israel stoned them, and after they had stoned the rest, they burned them. Over Achan they heaped up a large pile of rocks, which remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. Therefore that place has been called the Valley of Achor ever since. Joshua chapter 8. Then the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Take the whole army with you and go up and attack Ai, for I have delivered into your hands the king of Ai, this his people, his city, and his land. You shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may carry off their plunder and livestock for yourself. Set up ambush behind the city. So Joshua and the whole army moved out to attack Ai. He chose 30,000 of his best fighting men and sent them out at night with these orders. Listen carefully. You are to set an ambush behind the city. Don't go very far from it. All of you will be on the alert. I and all that are with me will advance on the city, and when the men come out against us, as they did before, we will flee from them. They will pursue us until we have lured them away from the city, for they will say, they are running away from us as they did before. So when we flee from them, you are to rise up from ambush and take the city. The Lord your God will give it to your hand. When you have taken the city, set it on fire. Do what the Lord has commanded. See to it you have my orders. Then Joshua sent them off, and they went to the place of ambush and lay in wait between Bethel and Ai to the west of Ai. But Joshua sent that night with spent that night with the people. Early the next morning, Joshua mustered his men, and he and the leaders of Israel marched before them to Ai. The entire force that was with them marched up and approached the city and arrived in front of it. They set up camp north of Ai, with the valley between them and the city. Joshua had taken about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai to the west of the city. They had the soldiers take up their positions, all those in the camp to the north of the city and the ambush to the west of it. That night Joshua went into the valley. When the king of Ai saw this, he and all the men of the city hurried out early in the morning to meet Israel in battle at a certain place overlooking the Arabah. When he did, but he did not know that the ambush had been set against him behind the city. Joshua and all Israel let themselves be driven back before them, and they fled toward the desert. All the men of Ai were called to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and were lured away from the city. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel, and did not go after Israel, who did not go after Israel. They left the city open and went in pursuit of Israel. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Hold out toward Ai the javelin that is in your hand, for into your hand I will deliver the city." So Joshua held out the javelin toward Ai. As soon as he did this, the men in the ambush rose quickly from their position and rushed forward. They entered the city and captured it and quickly set it on fire. The men of Ai looked back and saw the smoke of the city rising against the sky, but they had no chance to escape in any direction, for the Israelites who had been fleeing toward the desert had turned back against their pursuers. For when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city and that smoke was going up from the city, they turned around and attacked the men of Ai. The men of the ambush also came out of the city against them, so that they were caught in the middle with Israelites on both sides. Israel cut them down, leaving them neither survivors nor fugitives, but they took the king of Ai alive and brought him to Joshua. When Israel had finished killing all the men of Ai in the fields and in the desert where they had chased them, and when every one of them had been put to the sword, all of the Israelites returned to Ai and killed those who were in it. 12,000 men and women fell that day, all the people of Ai. For Joshua did not draw back the hand that held out the javelin until he had destroyed all who lived in Ai. But Israel did carry off for themselves the livestock and plunder of the city, as the Lord had instructed Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it a permanent heap of ruins, a desolate place to this day. He hung the king of Ai on a tree and left him there until evening. At sunset, Joshua ordered them to take his body from the tree and throw it down at the entrance of the city gate, and they raised a large heap of rocks over it, which remains to this day. When Joshua built on Mount Ebal an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the Israelites. He built it according to what is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones, on which no iron tool had been used. On it they offered to the Lord burnt offerings and sacrificed fellowship offerings. There, in the presence of the Israelites, Joshua copied on stones the law of Moses, which he had written. All Israel, aliens and citizens alike, with their elders, officials, and judges were standing on both sides of the ark of the covenant of the Lord, facing those who carried it, the priests who were Levites. Half of the people stood in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had formerly commanded when he gave instructions to bless the people of Israel. After Joshua read all the words of the law, the blessings and the curses, just as it is written in the book of the law, there was not a word of all that Moses had commanded that Joshua did not read to the whole assembly of Israel, including the women and children and the aliens who lived among them. Joshua chapter 9. Now when all the kings west of the Jordan heard about these things, those in the hill country and in the western foothills and along the entire coast of the great sea as far as Lebanon, the kings of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, they came together to make war against Joshua and Israel. However, when the people of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they resorted to a ruse. They went up as a delegation whose donkeys were loaded with worn-out sacks and old wine sacks, cracked and mended. The men put worn and patched sandals on their feet and wore old clothes. All the bread of their food supply was dry and moldy. Then they went to Joshua in the camp of Gilgal and said to him and the men of Israel, "We have come from a distant country. Make a treaty with us." The men of Israel said to the Hivites, "But perhaps you live near us. How then can we make a treaty with you? We are your servants," they said to Joshua. But Joshua asked, "Who are you and where do you come from?" They answered, "Your servants have come from a very distant country because of the fame of the Lord your God, for we have heard reports of him, all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, Sihon king of Heshbon and Og king of Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth. And our elders and all those living in our country said to us, 'Take provisions for your journey. Go and meet them and say to them, we are your servants. Make a treaty with us. This bread of ours was warm when we packed it at home on the day we left to come to you. But now we see how dry and moldy it is, and these wineskins that we filled were new, but see how cracked they are, and our clothes and sandals are worn out by the very long journey.' The men of Israel sampled their provisions, but did not inquire of the Lord. Then Joshua made a treaty of peace with them to let them live, and the leaders of the assembly ratified it by oath. 3 days after they made the treaty with the Gibeonites, the Israelites heard that they were neighbors living near them. So the Israelites set out, and on the 3rd day came to their cities, Gibeon, Kephirath, Beerhoth, and Kiriath Jearim. But the Israelites did not attack them, because the leaders of the assembly had sworn an oath to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. The whole assembly grumbled against the leaders. But all the leaders answered, "We have given them our oath by the Lord, the God of Israel, and we cannot touch them now. This is what we will do to them. We will let them live, so the wrath will not fall on us for breaking the oath we swore to them." They continued, "Let them live, but let them be woodcutters and wood carriers for the entire community." So the leaders promised to them was kept. Then Joshua summoned the Gibeonites and said, "Why did you deceive us by saying, 'We live a long distance from you,' while actually you live near us? You are now under a curse. You will never cease to serve as woodcutters and water carriers for the house of my God." They answered Joshua, "Your servants were clearly told how the Lord your God had commanded his servant Moses to give you the whole land and to wipe out all its inhabitants from before you. So we feared for our lives because of you, and that is why we did this. We are now in your hands. Do to us whatever seems good and right to you." So Joshua saved them from the Israelites, and they did not kill them. That day he made the Gibeonites woodcutters and water carriers for the community and for the altar of the Lord at the place of the Lord would choose, and that is what they are to this day. Joshua chapter 10. Now Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had taken Ai and totally destroyed it, doing to Ai and its king as he had done to Jericho and its king, and that the people of Gibeon had made a treaty of peace with Israel and were living near them. He and his people were very much alarmed at this, because Gibeon was an important city, like one of the royal cities. It was larger than Ai, and all the men were good fighters. So Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, appealed to Hoham, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Zarmath, Zaphiah, king of Zachith, and Dibber, king of Eglon. "Come up and help me attack Gibeon," he said, "because it has made peace with Joshua and the Israelites." Then the 5 kings of the Amorites, the kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon, joined forces. They moved up with all their troops and took up positions against Gibeon and attacked it. The Gibeonites then sent word to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal, "Do not abandon your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us. Help us, because all the Amorite kings from the hill country have joined forces against us." So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with his entire army, including all the best fighting men. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them. I have given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you." After an all-night march from Gilgal, Joshua took them by surprise. The Lord threw them into confusion before Israel, who defeated them in a great victory at Gibeon. Israel pursued them along the road going up to Beth Horon and cut them down all the way to Azekah and Makkedah. As they fled before Israel on the road down from Beth Horon to Azekah, the Lord hurled large hailstones down on them from the sky, and more of them died from the hailstone than were killed by the swords of Israel, the Israelites. On the day the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord in the presence of Israel, "O sun, stand still over Gibeon. O moon, over the valley of Ajalon." So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies, as it is written in the book of Jashar. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. There has never been a day like it before or since. A day when the Lord listened to a man. Surely the Lord was fighting for Israel. Then Joshua returned with all Israel to the camp at Gilgal. Now the 5 kings had fled and hidden in the cave at Makkedah. When Joshua was told that the 5 kings had been found hiding in the cave at Makkedah, he said, "Roll large rocks up to the mouth of the cave and post some men there to guard it, but don't stop. Pursue your enemies, attack them from the rear, and don't let them reach their cities, for the Lord your God has given them into your hand." So Joshua and the Israelites destroyed them completely, almost to a man, but the few who were left reached their fortified cities. The whole army then returned safely to Joshua in the camp at Makkedah, and no one uttered a word against the Israelites. Joshua said, "Open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out to me." So they brought up the 5 kings out of the cave, the kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon. When they had these kings brought these kings to Joshua, he summoned all the men of Israel and said to the army commanders who had come with him, "Come here and put your feet on the necks of the kings." So they came forward and placed their feet on their necks. Joshua said to them, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Be strong and courageous. This is what the Lord will do to all the enemies you are going to fight." Then Joshua struck and killed the kings and hung them on 5 trees, and they were left hanging on the trees until evening. At sunset, Joshua gave the order, and they took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had been hiding. At the mouth of the cave, they placed large rocks, which are there to this day. That day Joshua took Makkedah. He put the city and its king to the sword and totally destroyed everyone in it. He left no survivors. And he did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Makkedah to Libnah and attacked it. The Lord also gave the city and its king to Israel's hands. The city and everyone in it Joshua put to the sword. He left no survivors there, and he did this to its king as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on with Libnah and to Lachish. He took up positions against it and attacked it. The Lord handed Lachish over to Israel, and Joshua took it on the 2nd day. The city and everyone in it he put to the sword, just as he had done to Libnah. Meanwhile, Horam, king of Gezer, had come up to help Lachish, but Joshua defeated him and his army until no survivors were left. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Lachish to Eglon. They took up positions against it and attacked it. They captured it that same day and put it to the sword and totally destroyed everyone in it, just as they had done to Lachish. Then Joshua and all Israel with him went up from Eglon to Hebron and attacked it. They took the city and put it to the sword, together with its kings, its villages, and everyone in it. They left no survivors. Just as at Eglon, they totally destroyed it and everyone in it. Then Joshua and all Israel with him turned around and attacked Debir. They took the city, its kings, and its villages and put them to the sword. Everyone in it they totally destroyed. They left no survivors. They did to Dibber and its king as they had done to Libnah and its king, and to Hebron. So Joshua subdued the whole region, including the hill country, the Negev, the western foothills, and the mountain slopes, together with all their kings. He left no survivors. He totally destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua subdued them from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza, and from the whole region of Goshen to Gibeon. All these kings and their lands Joshua conquered in one campaign, because the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Then Joshua returned with all Israel to the camp at Gilgal. Joshua chapter 11. When Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of this, he sent word to Joab, king of Madon, to the kings at Shimron and Ashith, and to the northern kings who were in the mountains in the Arabah south of Kinnereth, in the western foothills, and in Naphath Dor on the west, to the Canaanites in the east and west, to the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, and Jebusites in the hill country, and to the Hivites below Hermon in the region of Mizpah. They came out with all their troops and a large number of horses and chariots, and a huge army as numerous as the sand of the seashore. All these kings joined forces and made camp together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, because by this time tomorrow I will hand all of them over to Israel, slain. You are to hamstring their horses and burn their chariots." So Joshua and his whole army came against them suddenly at the waters of Merom and attacked them, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Israel. They defeated them and pursued them all the way to Greater Sidon, to Mishpereth Maim, and to the valley of Mizpah on the east, until no survivors were left. Joshua did to them as the Lord had directed. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots. At that time Joshua turned back and captured Hazor and put its king to the sword. Hazor had been the head of all their kingdoms. Everyone in it they put to the sword. They totally destroyed them, not sparing anything that breathed, and he burned up Hazor itself. Joshua took all their royal cities and their kings and put them to the sword. He totally destroyed them as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. Yet Israel did not burn any of the cities built on their mounds, except Hazor, which Joshua burned. The Israelites carried off for themselves all the plunder and livestock of these cities, but all the people they put to the sword until they completely destroyed them, not sparing anyone that breathed, as the Lord commanded his servant Moses. So Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did it. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. So Joshua took his entire land, the hill country, all the Negev, the whole region of Goshen, the western foothills, the Arabah, and the mountains of Israel with their foothills, from Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir, to Baal Gad and the valley of Lebanon below Mount Hermon. He captured all their kings and struck them down, putting them to death. Joshua waged war against all these kings for a long time. Except for the Hivites living in Gibeon, not one city made a treaty of peace with the Israelites, who took them all in battle. For it was the Lord himself who hardened their hearts to wage war against Israel, so that he might destroy them totally, exterminating them without mercy, as the Lord had commanded Moses. At that time Joshua went and destroyed the Anakites from the hill country, from Hebron, Debir, and Anad, and from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua totally destroyed them and their towns. No Anakites were left in Israelite territory. Only in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod did any survive. So Joshua took the entire land just as the Lord had directed Moses, and he gave it to as an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal subdivisions. Then the land had rest from war. Joshua chapter 12. These are the kings of the land whom the Israelites had defeated, and whose territory they took over east of the Jordan, from the Arnon Gorge to Mount Hermon, including all the eastern side of the Arabah. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon, he ruled from Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, from the middle of the gorge to the Jabbok River, which is the border of the Ammonites. This included half of Gilead. He also ruled over the eastern Arabah, from the Sea of Kinnereth to the Sea of the Arabah, the Salt Seas, to Beth Jeshimoth, and then southward toward below the slopes of Pisgah, and the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the last of the Rephaites, who reigned in Ashtoreth and Edrei. He ruled over Mount Hermon, Salakah, all of Bashan, and the border of the people of Geshur and Mecca, and half of Gilead to the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land to the Reubenites and Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh to be their possession. These are the kings of the land that Joshua and the Israelites conquered on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal Gad to the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak, which rises toward Seir. Their lands Joshua gave as an inheritance to the tribes of Israel according to their tribal divisions: the hill country, the western foothills, the Arabah, the mountain slopes, the desert, and the Negev, the lands of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, the king of Jericho, the king of Ai near Bethel, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, the king of Gezer, the king of Dibber, the king of Geder, the king of Hormah, the king of Arad, the king of Libnah, the king of Ajalum, the king of Makkedah, the king of Bethel, the king of Tappuah, the king of Hepher, the king of Aphek, the king of Lasharon, the king of Madon, the king of Hazor, the king of Shimron Merom, the king of Akshaph, the king of Tanakh, the king of Megiddo, the king of Kadesh, the king of Jodim in Carmel, the king of Dor, the Norphath Dor, the king of Goyim and Gilgal, the king of Tirzah, 31 kings in all. Joshua chapter 13. When Joshua was old and well advanced in years, the Lord said to him, "You're very old, and there are still very large areas of the land to be taken. This is the land that remains, all the regions of the Philistines and Geshurites, from the Shihor River to the east of Egypt to the territory of Ekron on the north, all it counted as Canaanite, the territory of the 5 Philistine rulers in Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, that of the Avites from the south, all the land of the Canaanites, from Arah of the Sidonites as far as Aphek, the region of the Amorites, the area of the Gebulites, and all the Lebanon to the east, from Baal Gad below Mount Hermon to Lebo Hamath. As for all the inhabitants of the mountain regions, from Lebanon to Mishphereth Maim, that is all the Sidonians, I myself will drive them out before the Israelites. Be sure to allocate this land to Israel for an inheritance, as I have instructed you, and divide it as an inheritance among the 9 tribes and half of the tribe of Manasseh. Division of the land east of the Jordan. Verse 8. The other half of Manasseh, the Reubenites and the Gadites, had received the inheritance that Moses had given them east of the Jordan, as he, the servant of the Lord, had assigned it to them. It extended from Aroer to the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the middle of the gorge, and included the whole plateau of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the towns of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon and out of the border of the Ammonites. It also included Gilead, the territory of the people of Geshur and Makkah, and all the Mount Hermon, and all Bashan as far as Salakah, that is, the whole kingdom of Og and Bashan, who had reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei, and had survived as one of the last of the Rephites. Moses had defeated them and taken over their land, but the Israelites did not drive out the people of Geshur and Makkah, as they continue to live among the Israelites to this day. But to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance, since the offering made by fire to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance, as he promised them. This is what Moses had given to the tribe of Reuben, clan by clan, the territory from Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the middle of the gorge, and the whole plateau past Medeba to Heshbon and its towns of the plateau, including Dibon, Bamoth Baal, Beth Baal, Meon, Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephath, Kiriam, Siddah, Zereth Shahir, and on the hill in the valley, Beth Peor, the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Jeshimoth, all the towns of the plateau, and the entire realm of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled at Heshbon. Moses had defeated him and the Midianite chiefs Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, princes allied with Sihon, who lived in that country. In addition to those slain in battle, the Israelites had put to the sword Balaam, son of Beor, who practiced divination. The boundary of the Reubenites was the bank of the Jordan. These towns and the villages were the inheritance of the Reubenites, clan by clan. This is what Moses had given to the tribe of Gad, clan by clan, the territory of Jazer, all the towns of Gilead, and half the Ammonite country as far as Aror near Rabbath, and from Heshbon to Ramoth Mizpah, and Betonim, and from Mehaman to the territory of Dibber in the valley, Beth Haram, Beth Nimrah, Succoth, and Zaphon on the rest of the realm of Sihon, king of Heshbon, the east side of the Jordan, the territory up to the end of the Sea of Kinnereth. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the Gadites, clan by clan. This is what Moses had given to the half-tribe of Manasseh. This is to the half the family of the descendants of Manasseh, clan by clan. The territory extending from Mahanaim and including all of Bashan, the entire realm of Og, king of Bashan, all the settlements of Jair in Bashan, 60 towns, half of Gilead and Ashtoreth and Edrei, the royal cities of Og and Bashan. This was for the descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, for half of the sons of Machir, clan by clan. This is the inheritance Moses had given when he was in the plains of Moab, across the Jordan, east of Jericho. But to the tribe of Levi, Moses had given no inheritance. The Lord, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, as he promised them. Joshua chapter 14. Now these are the areas the Israelites received as an inheritance in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the tribal clans of Israel allotted to them. Their inheritance were assigned by lot to the 9.5 tribes, as the Lord had commanded through Moses. Moses had granted the 2.5 tribes their inheritance east of the Jordan, but had not granted the Levites an inheritance among the rest, for the sons of Joseph had become 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. The Levites received no share of the land, but only towns to live in, with pasture land for their flocks and herds. So the Israelites divided the land just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Now the men of Judah approached Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizites, said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, at Kadesh Barnea about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land, and I brought him back a report according to my convictions. But my brothers who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt with fear. I, however, followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land on which your feet have walked will be your inheritance, and that of your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly." Now then, just as the Lord promised, he had kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses, while Israel moved about in the desert. So here I am today, 85 years old. I'm still as strong today as in the day that Moses sent me out. I'm still as vigorous to go out to war now as I was then. Now give me this hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard that the Anakites were there, and the cities were large and fortified. But the Lord helping me, I will drive them out, just as he said. Then Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his inheritance. So Hebron has belonged to Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, ever since, because he followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba, after Arba, who was the greatest man among the Anakites. Then the land had rest from war. Joshua chapter 15. The allotment for the tribe of Judah, clan by clan, extended down to the territory of Edom, to the desert of Zin in the extreme south. Their southern boundary started from the bay at the southern end of the Salt Sea, across south of Scorpion Pass, continued on to Zin, and went over to the south of Kadesh Barnea. Then it ran past Hezron up to Ader, and curved around to Karka. It then passed along to Asmon and joined the Wadi of Egypt, ending at the sea. This is their southern boundary. The eastern boundary is the Salt Sea as far as the mouth of the Jordan. The northern boundary started from the bay of the sea at the mouth of the Jordan, went up to the Beth Hogla, and continued north of Beth Araba to the stone of Boham, son of Reuben. The boundary then went up to Dibber from the valley of Ankor and turned north to Gilgal, which faces the pass of Edom, south of the gorge. It continued along the waters of En Shemeth and came out at En Rogel. Then it ran up the valley of Ben Hinnom along the southern slope of the Jebusite city, that is Jerusalem. From there it climbed to the top of the hill west of the Hinnom Valley at the southern end of the valley of Rephaim. From the hilltop, the boundary headed toward the spring of the waters of Nephtoah, came out at the towns of Mount Ephraim, and went down toward Bela, that is Kiriath Jearim. Then it curved westward from Bala to Mount Seir, ran along the northern slope of Mount Jearim, that is Keshalon, continued down to Beth Shemesh, and across to Timrah. It went to the northern slope of Ekron, turned toward Shikharon, passed along to Mount Bala, and reached Jabneel. The boundary ended at the sea. The western boundary is the coastline of the Great Sea. These are the boundaries around the people of Judah by their clans. In accordance with the Lord's command to him, Joshua gave to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, a portion of in Judah, Kiriath Arba, and that is Hebron. Arba was the forefather of Anak. From Hebron, Caleb drove out the three Anakites, Sheshua, Aham, and Talmai, descendants of Anak. From there, he marched against the people living in Dibber, formerly called Kiriath Sefer. And Caleb said, I will give my daughter Ashka in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Zepher. Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Aksa to him in marriage. One day when she came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What can I do for you?" She replied, "Do me a special favor. Since you have given me land of the Negev, give me also springs of water." So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Judah, clan by clan. The southernmost towns of the tribe of Judah in the Negev toward the boundary of Edom were Kabzeel, Eder, Jagur, Kenna, Dimnah, Adana, Kadesh, Hazor, Ithnan, Ziph, Tillam, Beel, Bealoth, Hazor Hadakath, Kiryah Hezron, that is Hazor, Amon, Shema, Moladah, Hazor, Gada, Heshmon, Beth Pelet, Hazor Jul, Bathsheba, Besnithia, Bela, Lim, Ezem, Eltohab, Keshel, Hormah, Ziklag, Madmannah, Sansannah, Labath, Shilhim, Aim, and Rimmon, a total of 29 towns and their villages. In the western foothills, Eshtaol, Zorah, Ashna, Zanoah, Anganim, Tabua, Enan, Jarmuth, Ajalon, Succoth, Azekah, Shahrim, Adathane, and Gederoth for Gederothaim, 14 towns and their villages. Zenon, Hashnah, Misdal, Gad, Deliam, Mizpah, Joktheel, Lachish, Boshkath, Eglon, Kedon, Lamas, Kittish, Zederath, Beth, Dagon, Naamah, and Makkedah, 16 towns and their villages. Libnah, Ether, Osham, Iftah, Ashna, Nishib, Bela, Agzib, and Mersha, 9 towns and their villages. Ekron with its surrounding settlements and villages west of Ekron, all that were in the vicinity of Ashdod, together with the villages, Ashdod, its surrounding settlements and villages, and Gaza, its settlements and villages, as far as the Wadi of Egypt and the coastline of the Great Sea. In the hill country, Shamir, Jatir, Succoth, Dana, Kiriath, Sana, that is Dibber, Anab, Eshtomah, Anim, Goshem, Holam, and Gilo, 11 towns and their villages. Arab, Zunah, Eshan, Janam, Beth Taba, Aphekah, Hunta, Kiriath, Arba, that is Hebron, and Zeror, 9 towns and their villages. Maon, Carmel, Ziph, Jutah, Jezreel, Jokdeam, Zonah, Cain, Gibeah, and Timnah, 10 towns and their villages. Halel, Beth Zur, Giddo, Marath, Beth Anath, and Eltekon, 6 towns and their villages. Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, and Rabbah, 2 towns and their villages. In the desert, Beth Araba, Midden, Sekoah, Nibshan, and the city of Salt, and Engadi, 6 towns and their villages. Judah could not dislodge the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites live there with the people of Judah. Joshua chapter 16. The allotment for Joseph began at the Jordan of Jericho, east of the waters of Jericho, and went up from there through the desert into the hill country of Bethel. It went on from Bethel, that is Luz, crossed over to the territory of the Arkites and Ataroth, descended westward to the territory of the Japhthites, and far as the region of the lower Beth Horon, and on to Gezer, ending at the sea. So Manasseh and Ephraim, the descendants of Joseph, received their inheritance. This was the territory of Ephraim, clan by clan. The boundary of the inheritance went from Ataroth Ader to the east to the upper Beth Horon, and continued to the sea, from Mecmetha to the north to its curved eastward to the Tanath Shiloh, passed by it to Jonah on the east, then to the west. Then it went down from Janoah to the Ataroth and Nara, touched Jericho, and came out at the Jordan. From the Tapua, the border went west to the Cana ravine and ended at the sea. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the Ephraimites, clan by clan. It also included all the towns and their villages that were set aside for the Ephraimites within the inheritance of the Manassites. They did not dislodge the Canaanites living in the Gezer. To this day, the Canaanites live among the people of Ephraim, but are required to do forced labor. Joshua chapter 17. This was the allotment for the tribe of Manasseh at Joseph's firstborn, that is, for Machir, Manasseh's firstborn. Machir was the ancestor of the Gileadites, who had received Gilead and Bashan because the Machirites were great soldiers. So this allotment was for the rest of the people of Manasseh, the clans of Abizir, Helek, Azriel, Shechem, Hepher, and Shemida. These are the other male descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, by their clans. Now Zelophehad, son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters, whose names were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They went to Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the leaders, and said, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers." So Joshua gave them an inheritance along with the brothers of their father, according to the Lord's command. Manasseh's share consisted of 10 tracts of land, besides Gilead and Bashan east of the Jordan, because the daughters of the tribe of Manasseh received an inheritance among the sons. The land of Gilead belongs to the rest of the descendants of Manasseh. The territory of Manasseh extended from Asher to Machpelah, east of Shechem. The boundary ran southward from there to include the people living in Tapua. Manasseh had the land of Tapua Tekoa itself on the boundary of Manasseh belonged to the Ephraimites. Then the boundary continued south to the Cana ravine. There were towns belonging to Ephraim lying among the towns of Manasseh, but the boundary of Manasseh was the northern side of the ravine and ended at the sea. On the south, the land belonged to Ephraim, on the north to Manasseh. The territory of Manasseh reached the sea and bordered Asher on the north and Issachar on the east. Within Issachar and Asher, Manasseh also had Beth Shem, Ibleam, and the people of Dor, Endor, Tanakh, and Megiddo, together with their surrounding settlements. The third in its list and is Naphoth. Yet the Manassites were not able to occupy these towns, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that region. However, when the Israelites grew stronger, they subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not drive them out completely. The people of Joseph said to Joshua, "Why have you given us only one allotment and one portion for an inheritance? We're a numerous people, and the Lord has blessed us abundantly." "If you are so numerous," Joshua answered, "and if the hill country of Ephraim is too small for you, go into the forest and clear land for yourselves there in the land of the Perizzites and Rephites." The people of Joseph replied, "The hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who live in the plain have iron chariots, both those in Beth Shan and its settlements, and those in the valley of Jezreel." But Joshua said to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, "You're numerous and very powerful. You will have only one allotment, but the forested hill country as well. Clear it, and its farthest limits will be yours. Though the Canaanites have iron chariots, and though they are strong, you can drive them out." Joshua chapter 18. The whole assembly of the Israelites gathered at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. The country was brought under their control, but there was still 7 Israelite tribes who had not yet received their inheritance. So Joshua said to the Israelites, "How long will you wait before you begin to take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Appoint 3 men from each tribe. I will send them out to make a survey of the land and to write a description of it according to the inheritance of each. Then they will return to me. You are to divide the land into 7 parts. Judah is to remain in its territory on the south, and the house of Joseph in its territory on the north. After you have written descriptions on the 7 parts of the land, bring them here to me, and I will cast lots for you in the presence of the Lord our God. The Levites, however, do not get a portion among you, because the priestly service of the Lord is their inheritance." And Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have already received their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan. Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave it to them. As the men started on their way to map out the land, Joshua instructed them, "Go and make a survey of the land and write a description of it. Then return it to me, and I will cast lots for you here at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord." So the men left and went through the land. They wrote its description on a scroll, town by town, in 7 parts, and returned to Joshua and the camp at Shiloh. Joshua then cast lots for them in Shiloh in the presence of the Lord, and there he distributed the land to the Israelites according to their tribal divisions. Allotment for Benjamin. The lot came up for the tribe of Benjamin, clan by clan. Their allotted territory lay between the tribes of Judah and Joshua. On the north side, their boundary began at the Jordan, passed the northern slope of Jericho, and headed west to the hill country, coming out at the desert of Beth Aven. From there it crossed to the south slope of Luz, that is Bethel, and went down to Ader on the hill country of Lower Beth Horon. From the hill country, Beth Horon on the south, the boundary turned south along the western side and came out at Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, a town of the people of Judah. This was the western side. The southern side began at the outskirts of Kiriath Jearim on the west, and the boundary came out at the spring of the waters of Nephthah. The boundary went down to the foothills of the hill facing the valley of Beth Hinnom, north of the valley of Rephaim. It continued down the Hinnom Valley along the southern slope of the Jebusite city, and so to Enrogel. It then curved north, went to Enshemeth, continued to Gileath, which faces the pass of Adonam, and ran down to the stone of Boham, son of Reuben. It continued to the northern slope of Beth Araba on the down and on down to into the Araba. It then went to the northern slope of Beth Hogla and came out at the northern bay of the Salt Sea, at the mouth of the Jordan in the south. This was the southern boundary. The Jordan formed the boundary on the eastern side. These were the boundaries that marked out the inheritance of the clans of Benjamin on all sides. The tribe of Benjamin, clan by clan, had the following cities: Jericho, Beth Hogla, Emek Kezith, Beth Araba, Zemaraim, Bethel, Avim, Para, Oprah, Kepher, Ammoni, Ophni, and Geba. 12 towns and their villages: Gibeon, Ramoth, Berith, Mizpah, Kephirah, Moza, Rechem, Erpil, Terapah, Zelam, Haleph, the Jebusite city, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah and Kiriath, 14 towns and their villages. This was the inheritance of Benjamin for its clans. Joshua chapter 19. The second lot came out for the tribe of Simeon, clan by clan. Their inheritance lay within the territory of Judah. It included Beersheba or Sheba, Moladar, Hazar, Shual, Bela, Ezem, Eltalab, Bethel, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth, Morabath, Hazar, Susa, Beth Labath, and Sharamah. 13 towns and their villages: Ain, Remnon, Ether, and Eshem. 14 towns and their villages, and all the villages around the towns as far as Bela Beer, Ramah in the Negeb. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the Simeonites, clan by clan. The inheritance of Simeonites was taken from the share of Judah because Judah's portion was more than they needed. So the Simeonites received their inheritance within the territory of Judah. The third lot came up for Zebulun, clan by clan. The boundary of their inheritance went as far as Sereb. Going west, it ran to Maralah, touched Debesheth, and extended to the ravine near Jokneam. It turned east from Sereb toward the sunrise to the territory of Kishloth Tabor, and went on to Dabereth and up to Japhia. Then it continued eastward to Gath Hefer and Eth Kezem. It came out at Rimmon and turned toward Neah. There the boundary went around on the north to Hanathan and ended in the valley of Ifta-El. Included were Kedath, Nalel, Shimron, Adalah, and Bethlehem. There are 12 towns and their villages. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of Jebulun, clan by clan. The fourth lot came out for Ishkar, clan by clan. Their territory included Jezreel, Kishsaloth, Shunem, Hephnam, Sheon, Anarath, Ribbath, Kishion, Ebish, Rimmeth, and Ganon, and Hada, and Beth Peseth. The boundary touched Tabor, Shanua, and Beth Shemesh, and ended at the Jordan. There were 16 towns and their villages. These towns and villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Ishkar, clan by clan. The fifth lot came out for the tribe of Asher, clan by clan. Their territory included Helketh, Heli, Betim, Asheth, Almahek, Amad, and Mishal. On the west to the boundary touched Carmel and Shehar, Lebanon. It then turned east toward Beth Dagon, touched Zebulun and the valley of Ifta-El, and went north to the Beth Emek and Neiel, passing Kabul on the west. It went to Adon, Rahab, Hammon, and Kana as far as Greater Sidon. The boundary then turned back toward Ramah and went to the fortified city of Tyre, turned toward Hoshep, and came out at the sea in the region of Akzib, Umma, Aphek, and Rahab. There were 27 towns and their villages. These towns and villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Asher, clan by clan. The sixth lot came out for Naphtali, clan by clan. Their boundary went from Heleph on the large tree in Zanim, passing Adami Nekeb and Jebneel to Lakum and ending at the Jordan. The boundary ran west through Asnoth, Tashbar, and came out at Hukkah. It touched Zebulun on the south, Asher on the west, and in the Jordan on the east. The fortified cities were Zidon, Zer, Hamath, Raphah, Zenereth, Adamah, Ramah, Hazor, Kadesh, Andri, and Hazar, Aron, Migdal El, Horam, Beth Anath, and Beth Shemesh. There were 19 towns and their villages. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Naphtali, clan by clan. The seventh lot came out for the tribe of Dan, clan by clan. The territory of their inheritance included Zorah, Eshtal, Shemoth, Sher, Laban, Ajalon, Ithla, Elam, Temah, Ekron, Eltekah, Kemenah, Baleb, Jehud, Benai, Barak, Gath, Rim, Majarkon, and Jacon, and the area facing Joppa. But the Danites had difficulty taking possession of their territory, so they went up and attacked Leshem and took it, put it to the sword, and occupied it. They settled in Leshem and named it Dan after their forefather. These towns and villages were the inheritance of the tribe of Dan, clan by clan. When they had finished dividing the land into its allotted portions, the Israelites gave Joshua, son of Nun, an inheritance among them. As the Lord had commanded, they gave him the town he asked for, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim, and he built up the town and settled there. These are the territories that Eleazar, the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the tribal clans of Israel assigned by lot at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And so they finished dividing the land. Joshua chapter 20. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Tell the Israelites to designate the cities of refuge as I instructed you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person accidentally and unintentionally may flee there and find protection from the avenger of blood. Then when he flees to one of these cities, he is to stand in the entrance of the city gate and state his case before the elders of the city. Then they are to admit him into their city and give him a place to live with them. If the avenger of blood pursues him, they must not surrender the one accused, because he killed his neighbor unintentionally and without malice aforethought. He is to stay in that city until he has stood trial before the assembly and until the death of the high priest who is serving at that time. Then he may go back to his own home in the town from which he fled." So they set up apart Kadesh in Galilee and the hill country of Naphtali, Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah, on the east side of the Jordan of Jericho. They designated Bezer in the desert on the plateau in the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth and Gilead in the tribe of Gad, and Golam and Bashan in the tribe of Manasseh. Any of the Israelites or any alien living among them who kills someone accidentally could flee to these designated cities and not be killed by the avenger of blood prior to standing trial before the assembly. Joshua chapter 21. Now the family heads of the Levites approached Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the heads of the other tribal families of Israel at Shiloh in Canaan, and said to them, The Lord commanded through Moses that you give us towns to live in, with pasture land for our livestock. So, as the Lord commanded, the Israelites gave the Levites the following towns and pasture lands out of their own inheritance. The first lot came out for the Kohathalites, clan by clan. The Levites, who were descendants of Aaron, the priests, were allotted 13 towns, and the tribes of Judah. From the tribe of Judah, Simeon and Benjamin, the rest of Kohath's descendants were allotted 10 towns from the clan of the tribes of Ephraim, Dan, and half of Manasseh. The descendants of Gershon were allotted 13 towns from the clans of the tribes of Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and the half-tribe of Manasseh and Bashan. The descendants of Merari, clan by clan, received 12 towns from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. So the Israelites allotted to the Levites their towns and their pasture lands as the Lord had commanded through Moses. From the tribes of Judah and Simeon, they allotted the following towns by name. These towns were assigned to the descendants of Aaron, who were from the Kohathalite clans of the Levites, because the first lot fell to them.
Good morning. They gave them Kiriath Arab, that is Hebron, with the surrounding pasture land in the hills of Judah. Arab was the forefather of Anak, but the fields and villages around the city they had given to Caleb, son of Jerusalem, as his possession. So the descendants of Aaron, the priest, they gave Hebron, a city of refuge, for one accused of murder, Labanal, Letar, Ishmael, Holon, Debir, On, Judah, Beth Shemesh, together with their pasture land, 9 towns from these 2 tribes. And from the tribe of Benjamin, they gave them Gibeon, Anath, Almon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. All the towns for the priests, the descendants of Aaron, were 13, together with their pasture land. The rest of the Kohathite clan of Levites were allotted from the tribe of Ephraim. In the hill country of Ephraim, they were given Shechem, a city of refuge for one accused of murder, and Gezer, Kibazan, Beth Horon, together with their pasture land, 4 towns. Also from the tribe of Dan, they received Echelon, Gibbethon, Ashelon, Gath-Ramon, together with their pasture lands, 4 towns. From half the tribe of Manasseh, they received Takanash, Gathron, together with their pasture lands, 2 towns. All these 10 towns and their pasture lands were given to the rest of the Kohathite clans. The Levite clans, or the Gershonites, were given from the half-tribe of Manasseh, Golan of Bashan, a city of refuge for one accused of murder, and Beth-Zerash, together with their pasture lands, 2 towns. From the tribe of Issachar, Kishgon, Babardash, Garmeth, Enhar, together with their pasture land, 4 towns. From the tribe of Asher, Mishon, Avalon, Hekon, together with their pasture land, 4 towns. From the tribe of Naphtali, Kadesh in Galilee, a city of refuge for one accused of murder. Hamath, Dor, Carthon, and together with their pasture land, 3 towns. All the towns of the Gershonites were 13, together with their pasture lands. The Merarite clans, the rest of the Levites, were given from the tribe of Zebulun, Jochethers, Kareth, together with their pasture land, 4 towns. From the tribe of Reuben, Bezar, together with their pasture land, 4 towns. From the tribe of Gath, Ramoth in Gilead, a city of refuge of one committed of murder, 4 towns in all. All towns allowed it to the Merarite clans, for the rest of the Levites were 12. The towns of the Levites in the territory held by the Israelites were 48 in all, together with their pasture land. Each of these towns had pasture land surrounding it, and it was true for all of these towns. So the Lord gave Israel all the land he had sworn to give to their forefathers, and they took possession of it and settled there. The Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he had sworn to their forefathers. Not one of their enemies withstood them. The Lord handed all of their enemies over to them. Not one of the Lord's good promises to the house of Israel failed. Every one was fulfilled. Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribes of Manasseh, and said to them, You have done all that Moses, the son of the Lord, commanded, and you have obeyed me in everything I commanded. For a long time now, to this very day, you have not deserted your brothers, but have carried out your mission to the Lord your God gave you. Now that the Lord your God has given you your brothers rest as he promised, return to your home in the land that Moses, a servant of the Lord, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. Be very careful to keep the commandments and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you, to love the Lord your God, and to walk in his ways, to obey his commandments, to hold fast to him, and to serve him with all of your hearts and with your soul. Then Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their homes. To the half-tribe of Manasseh, Moses had given them land in Bashan, and to the other half, the tribe of Joshua gave the west side of the Jordan to their brothers. When Joshua sent them home, he blessed them, saying, Return to your homes with your great wealth, with your large herds of livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and a great quantity of clothing, and divide with your brothers the plunder from your enemies. So the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the Israelites in Shiloh in Canaan to return to Gilead, their own land, which they had acquired in accordance to the command of the Lord through Moses. When they came to near Jordan in the land of Canaanites, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an imposing altar by the Jordan. And when the Israelites heard that they had built an altar on the border of Canaan at Gilead near Jordan on the Israelite side, the whole assembly of Israel gathered at Shiloh to go to war against them. So the Israelites sent Phinehas, son of Ezar, the priest, to the land of Gilead, to Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. With him they sent 10 chief men, one for each of the tribes of Israel, each the head of a family division among the Israelite clan. When they came to Gilead, to Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they said to them, "The whole assembly of the Lord says, how could you break faith with God of Israel like this? How could you turn away from the Lord and build yourself an altar in rebellion against him now? Was not the sin of Peor enough for us? Up to this very day we have not cleansed ourselves from that sin, even though a plague fell upon the community of the Lord. And now you are turning away from the Lord? If you rebel against the Lord today, tomorrow he will be angry with the whole community of Israel. And if the land you possess is defiled, come over to the Lord's land, where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and share this land with us. But do not rebel against the Lord or against us by building an altar for yourself, other than the altar of the Lord our God." When Achan, son of Zerah, acted unfaithfully toward the devoted things, did not wrath come down upon the whole community of Israel? He was not the only one who died for his sin. Then Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh replied to the heads of the clan of Israel, "The mighty one, God, the Lord, the mighty one, God, the Lord, he knows, and let Israel know. If it has been in rebellion or disobedience to the Lord, do not spare us this day. If we have built on our own altar to turn away from the Lord, and to burn offerings and grain offerings, and to sacrifice fellowship offerings on it, may the Lord himself call us to account. No, we did for fear that someday your descendants may say to ours, 'What do you have to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? The Lord has made the Jordan a boundary between us and you, the Reubenites and the Gadites. You have no share in the Lord, so your descendants might curse ours to stop fearing the Lord.' That is why we said, 'Let us get ready and build an altar, but not for burnt offerings or sacrifice. On the contrary, it is to be a witness between us and you and the generations that follow, that we will worship the Lord in his sanctuary with our own burnt offerings, sacrifice, and fellowship offerings. Then, in the future, your descendants will not be able to say to ours, 'You have no share in the Lord.'" And we said, if we ever say this to us or to our descendants, we will answer, "Look at the replica of the Lord's altar, which was our fathers built, not for burnt offerings and sacrifice, but as a witness between us and you. Far be it from us to rebel against the Lord and turn away from him today by building an altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, and sacrifice, other than the altar of the Lord our God that stands before his tabernacle." Then Phinehas the priest and the leaders of the community and the heads of the clans of Israel heard what Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh had to say. They were pleased. And Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, said to Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, "Today we know that the Lord is with us, because you have not acted unfaithfully toward the Lord in this matter. Now you have rescued the Israelites from the Lord's hand." Then Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, and the leaders returned to Canaan from their meetings with the Reubenites and the Gadites in Gilead and reported to the Israelites. They were glad to hear the report and praised God. They talked no more about going to war against them to devastate the country where the Reubenites and the Gadites lived. The Reubenites and the Gadites gave the altar this name, "A witness between us and the Lord is God." After a long time had passed, and the Lord had given Israel rest from their enemies all around them, Joshua by then was old and well advanced in years, summoned all Israel, their elders, leaders, judges, and officials, and said to them, I am old and well advanced in your years. You yourself have seen everything the Lord God has done to all these nations for your sake. It was the Lord your God who fought for you. Remember how I allotted as an inheritance for your tribes all the lands of the nations that remain. The nations I conquered between Jordan and the great sea in the west. The Lord your God himself will drive them out of your way. He will push them out before you, and you will take possession of their lands, as the Lord your God promised you. Be very strong. Be careful to obey all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, without turning aside to the right or to the left. Do not associate with these nations that remain among you. Do not invoke the names of their gods or swear by them. You must not serve them or bow down to them, but you are to hold fast to the Lord your God as you have until now. The Lord has driven out before you great and powerful nations. To this day, no one has been able to withstand you. No one of you routs 1,000, because the Lord your God fights for you, just as he promised. So be very careful to love the Lord your God. But if you turn away and ally yourself with the survivors of these nations that remain among you, and if you intermarry with them or associate with them, then you may be sure that the Lord your God will no longer drive out these nations before you. Instead, they will become snares and traps for you, whips for your back, and thorns for your eyes, until you perish from this good land, from which the Lord your God has given you. Now I am about to go the way of all the earth. You know with all of your heart and soul that not one of the good promises the Lord God gave you has failed. Every promise has been fulfilled. Not one has failed. Just as every good promise of the Lord your God has come true, so the Lord will bring on you the evil he has threatened until he has destroyed you from this good land he has given you. If you violate the covenant of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, and go and serve other gods and bow down to them, the Lord's anger will burn among you, and you will quickly perish from the good land he has given you. Then Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. He summoned the elders, leaders, judges, and officials of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. Joshua said to all the people, This is what the Lord, God of Israel, says. Long ago, your forefathers, including Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, lived beyond the river and worshipped other gods. But I took your father Abraham from the land beyond the river and led him throughout Canaan and gave him many descendants. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. And I assigned the hill country of Seir to Esau, but Jacob and his sons went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I afflicted the Egyptians by what I did there. And I brought you out. When I brought your fathers out of Egypt, you came to the sea, and the Egyptians pursued you with chariots and horsemen as far as the Red Sea. But they cried out to the Lord for help, and he put darkness between you and the Egyptians. He brought the seas over them and covered them, You saw with your own eyes what I did with the Egyptians. Then you lived in the desert for a long time. I brought you out of the Amorites, who lived east of the Jordan. They fought against you, but I gave them into your hands. I destroyed them before you, and you took possession of their land. When Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, prepared to fight against Israel, he sent Balaam, son of Beor, to put a curse on you. But I would not listen to Balaam, so he blessed you again and again, and I delivered you out of his hands. Then you took the Jordan and came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho fought against you, as did the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Geshurites, Hivites, and Jebusites. But I gave them into your hands. I sent the hornet ahead of you, which drove them out before you. Also 2 Amorite kings. You did not do it with your own sword and bow. So I gave you a land on which you did not toil, and cities that you did not build, and you live in them, and eat from their vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. Now fear the Lord, and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods of your forefathers, worship beyond the river, and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day to whom you will serve, whether it be the gods of your forefathers served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Then the people answered, Far be it from us to forsake the Lord, to serve other gods. It was the Lord our God himself who brought us and our fathers up from Egypt, from that land of slavery, and performed the great signs before our eyes. He protected us on our entire journey and among all nations through which we traveled. And the Lord drove out all of the nations, including the Amorites who lived in the land. We too will serve the Lord because he is our God. Joshua said to the people, You are not able to serve the Lord. He is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your rebellion and your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve other gods, he will turn and bring disaster on you and make an end of you after he has been good to you. But the people said to Joshua, No, we will serve the Lord. And Joshua says, You are witnesses against yourself that you have chosen to serve the Lord. Yes, we are witnesses, they replied. Now then, throw away the foreign gods that are among you, and yield your heart to God, to the Lord, the God of your Israel. And the people said to Joshua, We will serve the Lord our God and obey him. On that day Joshua made a covenant for the people, and there at Shechem he drew up for them decrees and laws. And Joshua recorded these things in the book of law of God. Then he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak near the holy place of the Lord. See, he said to all the people, This stone will be a witness against us. It has been heard the words of the Lord had said to us. It will be a witness against you if you are untrue to your God. Then Joshua sent his people away, each to his own inheritance. After these things, Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of God, died of an age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance, in Timoth, Shuron, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. Israel served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him and who had experience everything the Lord had done for Israel. And Joseph's bones, which the Israelites had brought out of Egypt, were buried in Shechem, in the tract of land that Jacob had bought for 100 pieces of silver from the son of Hamor, the father of Shechem. This became the inheritance of Joseph's descendants. And Eleazar, son of Aaron, died and was buried at Gibel, which is allotted to his sons Phinehas in the hill country of Ephraim. The book of Judges. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, "Who will be first to go up and fight for us against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah is to go. I have given the lands into their hands." Then the men of Judah said to Simonites, their brothers, "Come with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites. We, in turn, will go with you into yours." So the Simonites went with them. When Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there they found Adonizekah and fought against him, putting to right the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And Adonizekah fled, and they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumb and big toes. Then Adonizekah said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes have picked up scraps underneath my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem also and took it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire. After that, the men of Judah went down to fight the Canaanites living in the hill country in Negev, the western foothills. They advanced against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly called Kirith Araba, and defeated Shishkin, and they lived there. There they advanced against the people living in Debir. And Caleb said, "I will give my daughter Ashash in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kerath." Othniel, son of and Caleb's younger brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Ashash to him in marriage. One day she came to Othniel, and she urged him to ask the father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What can I do for you?" She replied, "Do me a special favor. Since you've given me the land of Negev, give me also springs of water." Then Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. Is it time?
No, go ahead. You finish up.
Well, I'm pretty well. Then Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. Good morning, sir.
It was fun hearing you this morning. All right. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law and the Canaanite went up from the city of Psalms with the men of Judah to live among the people of the desert of Judah in the Negev near Arad. Then the men of Judah went with the Simeonites and their brothers and attacked the Canaanites living in Zapheth, and they totally destroyed the city. Therefore, it was called Hormah. The men of Judah also took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city with its territory. The Lord was with the men of Judah, and they took possession of the hill country. But they were unable to drive the people from the plains, because they had iron chariots. As Moses had promised, Hebron was given to Caleb, who drove from it the 3 sons of Anak. and the Benjaminites. The Benjaminites, however, failed to dislodge the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites lived there with the Benjamites. Now, the house of Joseph attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. When they sent men to spy out Bethel, formerly called Luz, the spies saw a man coming out of the city and said to him, "Show us how to get into the city, and we will see that you are treated well." So he showed them, and they put the city to the sword, but spared the man and his whole family. He then went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Bethshan or Tanakh or Dor or Iblim or Megiddo and their surrounding settlements. For the Canaanites were determined to live in that land when Israel became strong. They pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but never drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, but the Canaanites continued to live there among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites, nor Kitron or Nahal, who remain among them, but they did not subject them to forced labor. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Acco or Sidon or Alab or Askeb or Helba or Aphek or Rehob. And because of its people of Asher lived among the Canaanites, inhabitants of the land. Neither did Naphtali drive out those living in Beth Shemesh or Bethanath, but the Naphtalites too lived among the Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land, and those living in Beth Shemesh and Bethanath became the forced laborers for them. The Amorites confined to the Danites into the hill country, not allowing them to come down to the plain. And the Amorites were determined also to hold out in Mount Heres, Ahalon and Shalamim. But when the power of the house of the Joseph increased, they too were pressed into forced labor. The boundary of the Amorites and was from Scorpion past to Selah and beyond. Judges chapter 2.
The angel of the Lord at Bochum. The angel of the Lord went from Gilgal to Bochum and said, "I brought you up out of Egypt and led you into the land that I swore to give to your forefathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars, yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? Now therefore I tell you that I will not drive them out before you. They will be thorns in your side, and their gods will be a snare to you." When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people went aloud, and they called that place Bochum. There they offered sacrifices to the Lord. Disobedience and defeat. After Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land. Each of his own inheritance, the people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance, at Timnath Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. After the whole generation had been gathered to their fathers, another generation grew up, who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them. They provoked the Lord to anger, because they forsook him and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. In his anger against Israel, the Lord handed them over to the raiders, who plundered them, who sold them to their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he had sworn to them. They were in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges, who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted them to other gods and worshipped them. Unlike their fathers, they quickly turned from the way in which their fathers had walked, the way of obedience to the Lord's commandments. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies. As long as the judge lived, for the Lord had compassion on them, as they groaned under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to ways even more corrupt than those of their fathers, following other gods and serving and worshiping them. They refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. Therefore the Lord was angry with Israel and said, because this nation has violated the covenant that I laid down for their forefathers and was not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it, as their forefathers did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once by giving them into the hands of Joshua.
When we get to Ehud, you're gonna like that.
Oh.
These are the nations that the Lord left to test all those Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan. He did this only to teach the warfare of the descendants of the Israelites who had not had battle experience. The 5 rulers of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonites, and the Hivites living in Lebanon mountains, from Mount Baal Hermon to Lebo Hamath, they were left to test the Israelites to see whether they would obey the Lord's commands, which he had given their forefathers through Moses. The Israelites lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, and they took their daughters in marriage and gave their own daughters to their sons and served their gods, whom the Israelites were subject for 8 years. But when they cried out to the Lord, he raised them up for a deliverer, Othniel and son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, who saved them. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon them, so that they became Israel's judge and went to war. The Lord gave Cushan Ramashin, king of Aram, into the hands of Othniel, who overpowered him. So the land had peace for 40 years until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. Ehud. Once again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and because they did this evil, the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel. Getting the Ammonites and Amalekites to join him, Eglon came and attacked Israel. They took possession of the city of Palms. The Israelites were subject to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. Again, the Israelites called out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, a left-handed man, son of Gera, a Benjamite. The Israelites sent him with a tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Ehud made a double-edged sword of about 1.5 feet long, which he strapped to his right thigh under his clothing. He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was a very fat man. After Ehud had presented the tribute, he sent on their way the men who had carried it. At the idols near Gilgal, he gave himself, turned his back, and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." The king said, "Quiet," and all his attendants left him. Ehud then approached him while he was sitting alone in the upper room in the summer palace. And he said, "I have a message to you from God for you." As the king rose from his seat, Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, which came out of his back. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed over it. Then Ehud went out into the porch. He shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked them. After he had gone, the servants came and found the doors of the upper room locked. They said he must be relieving himself in the inner room of the house. They waited until the point of embarrassment, but when he had not opened the doors of the room, they had took the key and unlocked them. And they saw there their Lord had fallen to the floor dead. While they waited, Ehud got away, passed by the idols, and escaped to Syria. When he arrived there, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down with him from the hills, with him leading them. Follow me, he ordered, for the Lord